All right, everyone, I'm really excited that I have Ian on the show again. He was the very first when I started the interviews. He's the very first on my seasons 2 of this interview series. I'm really excited to follow up on what happened on Evernote in the meantime and what new exciting feature we just got there. Welcome back, Ian. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
Awesome. So before we dive into the new feature, everybody wants to know, and maybe some of the people know already what I'm talking about. I want to address what happened after our interview, actually. We had this interview. I saw a lot of comments below this interview. Certainly you saw this as well. So, and you also published a blog post where you addressed a lot of these concerns. And this made me actually very happy to see this, because you specifically mentioned that the long-term users felt being let down by taking away the features and some features, and that there was a lack of transparency. You mentioned this. Maybe you want to say it in your own words.
I think in the blog post that we put out sort of in the middle of December, I talked pretty openly about the fact that the launch didn't go the way we wanted it to, and I think in retrospect, I mean, lots of people have lots of different opinions, obviously, about what we should do. At the end of the day, we need to make decisions and do things, and we can only do one thing at a time. But as I said in the blog post, I think the place we went wrong was that when we came out with the Mac and Windows builds, we knew that we were going to let people keep their old previous versions going, for certainly, for a long time at this point. And so we were focused on getting a build out that sort of addressed the needs of the 90% or the 95%. And we knew when we put it out that it didn't address the needs of the 5% or the 10%. And I don't think we did a good enough job in communicating that up front and saying, look, this build might not be ready for you. It's there. You can take a look at it. It might not be ready for you. And if so, just stick with your existing build. It continues to work, and it will continue to work. And so I think because we didn't, given the choices that we made, and we made choices in order to be able to move forward as a company and actually get to some of the things like new features that are being released now, we didn't do a good enough job of communicating that up front. And, there was a lot of reaction to that, a lot of confusion, a lot of dismay, some angst. I'll even go with that, and frustration. And look, I interact with upset or distraught users on a regular basis, trying to help them through problems or figure out when we're going to actually get the thing that they next need in the software. And I just don't think we did that as well as we could have in retrospect. I mean, you used the word transparency, and I think that's probably a reasonable word to use. And this is one where, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have changed the way we messaged the rollout, particularly the Mac and Windows clients.
Yeah,
we
I
had
think
bugs. Just to be clear, we also had bugs that we shouldn't have had, and that we should have caught, and that we didn't cut. And if I could really go back and do it all over again, I would have fixed some of those bugs. But sometimes that's also software, and I think that's not an excuse. That just is the business. That unfortunately, it sometimes works that way. And we've worked very fast to try and fix as many of those bugs as we can, and certainly the severe ones, but we still have work to do there. And I think, what we're starting to show is that every 2 or 3 weeks, new things are like more of that backlog of features is coming into the product. More of the stuff that people are missing is coming into the product, and we have a ways to go. And the whole point is for, as you say, these power users, like, take a look. If it's not ready for you, it's not ready for you. And it will be ready for you. We are coming. And when it's ready for you, it won't just be all the old stuff. There'll be a bunch of new stuff too.
Yeah, I think the main issue was really that people just installed this or got a message to there's an update, and they weren't really aware that it might be, or that features going away. I think that is the main thing, isn't it? Because people have their running productivity systems, they rely on this on a daily basis, and from one day to the other, they don't realize they have the option to go back to a legacy version and all this. So you addressed this. Certainly in the internet, people could find later on that there are options to go back and to how to rescue their workflows. So we are now 2 months forward, or is it even 3 months now after this release? I mean, I had this other interview with Carl Pulin. He's also an Evernote heavy user, and we were talking about this release as well. And we just thought, okay, if you mentioned that all these features will come back eventually, we might have waited another 3 months after 2 years, another 3 months, and have these features already in place. On the other hand, I understand at some point you have to make the decision to roll it out. And then we see it now. It's the real case situation, which gives other bugs, other things, other use cases you can't cope with better phase, isn't it? That's really the thing.
I think you don't get too many do-overs in life, and I don't. When I look at the speed at which we are moving now, I think we made the right decision to roll it out. I think I would like to go back and fix some of the bugs. But I do think we if we went back and did it again, we would communicate differently around it.
So what was the worst bug you encountered after launch?
The worst bug actually was on iOS, predominantly on iOS. And it was literally a bug that we did not see in beta, the entire beta process, which was that early on, you could get these repeated note conflicts where you'd be working on a note and you'd finish working on your note and you'd discover that there were 35 copies of the note in your in your Evernote, and it was because the system was detecting note conflicts internally where there wasn't one, and it was mistakenly detecting one and saving a copy to make sure you didn't lose anything. But you'd finish editing the note, you'd come out, you'd find 35 copies of the note, and you'd like, what is that? And that it's not like it was a rare occurrence, but when it occurred, it was flagrant in how absurd it was. But it took us a while to actually find and isolate the cause of what it was. So, we knew it within probably 6 days of the first rollout, about 6 days. It wasn't there. We didn't see it on the first, second, third, fourth day. Started to get wind of it on maybe the 5th day, 6th day. We're like, there's something going on. It probably took us a month before we stamped most of it out. Because it's just very hard to reproduce and get there. That's an example of something we just did not see at all in the beta process. We did not see in QA. Even when we knew it existed, we couldn't reproduce it internally, despite every effort we made. It's like, it was, but it was, that to me was the kind of bug that I'd like to take back.
And but this is gone.
This one's gone.
Right.
But it's a process of stabilizing the software. And, I think every build gets a little faster. Every build gets a little more stable. Every build gets some more stuff in it. And I think most Evernote users have not seen us release software at this speed for a long time.
Yeah, was about to mention this. People can really see now that you are publishing on such a consistent basis all these new patches and updates and bug fixes. So I think this builds up trust that you're really behind this and working hard on this to get it right. As I said, also with the blog post and things like this, helping a lot of people to understand the process going through this. The other thing is I wondered about was, wouldn't it help if you be more transparent about the roadmap? So you certainly have some publications and some features that I want to come back, and talking about transparency might be worth saying, okay, in 2 months you will have this feature back, and then we will, and so on. So you're nodding heavily, you know what I'm talking about.
Everybody would like transparency about the future. I think what we are doing is across our builds, we're starting to publish as part of the release notes a set of notes that we call, which is a look into some of the things that we are working on at the moment. Now, does coming soon mean they're coming in 2 weeks? No. In some cases, it's 2 weeks. In some cases, it's 2 months. But at the end of the day, you publishing a future-looking roadmap at the speed we're trying to move right now, we would just spend a lot of time in discussions. Well, why is that then? Why is that feature coming before that feature? Or, oh, you said you'd have that feature in this week, and it's not here in this release. We have a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to cover it as quickly as we can. Our goal with the coming soon part of the release notes is to sort of indicate some of the stuff that's up high on our priority list that will be coming in the upcoming set of releases. But I think more specifics than that is probably going to create more noise rather than more help.
Yeah. But talking about the statistics behind all these decisions, we talked in our last interview about tag users. How many users do use tags? And you mentioned it's about 2% of the Evernote users do use tags. Yeah, just
that's correct.
Yeah. So what I did, I went on social media in all the different channels and started a poll who is using actually tags. So it was more than 50% using tags in Evernote. Now, the important thing here again, we have to look at the data the right way. Obviously, people who follow this channel and are really watching these interviews, they're really into the nitty-gritty. They're really heavy power users of this, and that might not be the majority of Evernote. Am I about right?
You probably shouldn't go into the election polling business.
Well, at least I analyzed it on my own for my own data, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I try to be realistic there. I think that was one of the reasons.
So I can't. I think that speaks to exactly what you just said. Is that obviously the people who follow your blog and your podcast or video series are obviously heavy into productivity, and they skew to one end of our user set. But we have tens of millions of users, and they come from all walks of life and all aspects of sort of how heavily are they into productivity and the nitty gritty versus how much do they want a tool that just works, et cetera, et cetera. What I would say, kind of put some more color behind this, is 2% is about the right number. I didn't actually look before this, but what I can say is the number is different also by platform and device. Right? So the heaviest tag users are on Windows, the next heaviest users are on Mac, the next users after that are on web, the next ones after that are on Android, and then the least ones after that are on iOS.
But this might change, isn't it? That way. But this might change now, because it might be the accessibility of tags. I couldn't make nested tags in my iOS and things like that. So that might have been the reason why the numbers are this. So we can discuss about this, but I think that's an important point.
But actually, you're getting to exactly the point. And the reason that the numbers are like that and not consistent is because the implementations on the various devices were so different in the past, right?
So
and so
if you
iOS tags were like viewed as a bad thing and were barely supported, and the Windows build tags are like super central to the interface.
So would you agree with me that tags, I mean, if implemented right, they're very powerful, and with the harmonized platforms, it might be worth to talk a lot more about, or what I want to say actually here is, yes, there are a lot of people not using tags for certain reasons, but a lot of people don't know about the advantage about these ways to work with this. And we discussed about this last time. Evernote was for remembering in the past, and now we're coming to a different level. 2021 will be crazy when it comes to these productivity tools and backlinks and all these things we discussed. Text is certainly one of these fields that the average user should become aware of, so we start actually leveraging the digital world instead of just living in it, isn't it?
So here's the thing: when we talked earlier on about you have to look at the statistics, the right way or through the right lens or whatever. So with the new builds, tag usage is up on every platform except Windows, where it is down.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Thanks for sharing.
And it actually makes a lot of sense, because I won't say we've made tags better everywhere, but we've certainly made tags better on some platforms, and we made it more accessible everywhere. But it is also true that if you look at the Windows implementation of Evernote, sort of before and after, the new one is not as powerful with respect to tags. And so that would make sense, where Windows users tended to use tags most frequently, and that's a place we've been less successful so far. But what I would say is, we're not done. We know this is an area where we haven't done right by the Windows users, and we know this is an area we need to improve. But at the same time, we also have this challenge where, the Windows interface was radically different from the Mac interface and radically different from the other interfaces. We need to find a middle ground where we can bring Windows users back their power in a way that can work for us across multiple devices, so that, everything I can do on a Windows machine, I can see on an Android machine. Maybe I can do it on an Android, or I can do it on iOS in a way that makes sense, obviously with a smaller screen. So what I would say is tags is an area of focus for us. We have implemented a program internally where we are working on closing the gap with where we are. We know we have hurt some workflows, and we need to do something about that. And so our mid-December release made a bunch of improvements around tags. Our mid-January release will continue improvements. So we're not sitting there, content with where we are. We are driving to get back to a tag interface that supports the needs of the power users. But yeah, it is one of those things where every single person sees Evernote through their own lens.
Yeah.
And that lens is the only lens that matters to that person. And I totally get that. Our job is we have to look at Evernote through tens of millions of lenses. And we have done some things good around tags because we have lifted tag usage. But we have done some things that are not good around tags because we have hurt some power users, and we have to go and fix that. And that's what we're in the process of doing.
That's great. And you just mentioned releases in January, and now I really want to talk about the latest release. I'm actually pretty excited about this. Didn't expect something like this to come that soon, but I think this is pretty awesome. So we have now in Evernote a dashboard or home screen, or how do you call it properly?
We call it Home.
Home. Okay. Home. It's Evernote Home. For those who didn't use this yet, it gives us much more control over our notes. So that was really interesting to see. So obviously, the most obvious thing would be having some favorites there and shortcuts and things like this. But I also saw something like recent notes, suggested notes, and all this. And I have a feeling that this is just the start of a bigger picture you have in mind when it comes to this, and you finally start to connect the dots in your own system. Maybe you want to introduce us to this new feature with your own words.
Sure. You make me smile with your description, but let's just start. Start by saying, Home is a new way to start your day in Evernote. And our goal with Home is, over time, to present you with sort of the most relevant information that you might need, to get through your day today in Evernote. And Home is being released in this build, but it is, as you say, just the start. What it really is a completely new surface for Evernote that is a single place that can gather together many different kinds of content that is in Evernote. And if you are a paid subscriber, you have more options for what you can have in Home. You can customize Home. You can set it up the way you want to, and so on and so forth. Today, it's a dashboard with a number of widgets on it. You can apply some customization to those widgets. As you say, the widgets allow you to see things like your recent notes or notebooks you've accessed. A lot of things that you can get to today through the left nav one way or another, but presented in a single place all at the same time. And then, as you say, there are new views as well where we start to suggest things that we think might be relevant to you based on your recent sort of access pattern and things like that. So Home is very much an idea of a new place to start your day in Evernote. Previously, you kind of started your day with all notes and just a list of notes.
Yes.
And we know that people were going to a lot of work to sort of build their own dashboards with notes. This is my dashboard note. And we went out and we actually studied some of these things and we're like, okay, there's an idea here that's interesting. But more than that, we also wanted this new surface through which we could start to bring things to the users. In a note list, there isn't a way to bring things to you because it's a note list and it's maybe chronologically oriented or ordered by title or author or what have you. But when we have a dashboard, we have a way to start actually bringing things to you, the user, when they might be useful. And so that's, there's Home of today and there's Home of tomorrow. Home today is creating this new surface, something that is being made possible by all the work we've done over the last 2 years. But Home as a surface isn't just going to be static. It's you're going to see more and more new things popping up there, both new ways to look at your existing content and new kinds of content that Evernote will support in the future.
That's really interesting. And there it also comes to my mind in regards of teamwork. So Evernote started with the single user in mind, and maybe that's one of the reasons as well for the relaunch of Evernote and a new infrastructure to provide teams better support with your tool. So is this also something that you're considering for the dashboard to have some specific team features?
We do believe that there is lots of room for widgets on the dashboard that are particularly relevant to Evernote Business. And that make sense in that team context that don't make sense for a single user.
Yeah.
That's not part of what we're putting out today, but directionally, yes, that's another thing that opens up through this dashboard. We're very much this is step one.
Yeah. Another question that arises there. will it be open for third-party developers to create widgets, or will it be there a widget market or something like this available?
Not immediately.
So I can create customized widgets. Put it this way.
Haven't got there yet.
Okay, maybe in the third interview then. Yeah, but I think that's a great development, and yeah, let's see what people think about this. But I personally really like this implementation, and it also really feels very fluid and thought through. I was really surprised when I was looking at this dashboard. Happy to see the comments below what others think. I'm sure you want to know this as well. So now we have 2021, just the start. Any thoughts, words for us, what to come in 2021? I know you're not going too specific here.
I'm not there.
But will be every customer happy in the end of 2021? Now, what is the plan? I mean, let's say having the features back people were missing. Will it be very close, the date, or is it end of 2021? I think that's something we could address, isn't it?
I don't actually have a timeline, and part of that is because we're just working through it as it comes.
Yeah.
And as I said in the blog post in December, we're balancing filling in the backlog with some of the new work that is coming out. Obviously, it took engineers to build Home, and it's not a small undertaking, and it's something we were working on in advance of the release of any of the clients in order to be able to have it in beta in the fourth quarter of last year and then be able to release it now. So we have other things that are also in development. But so we're balancing internally the mix between people working on completely new capabilities for Evernote and people working on the feature backlog. What I will say is, our goal, and we may not always make it, but our goal is that, in every release, and we are releasing every 2 to 3 weeks, in every release, there should be something from the backlog that gets filled in, and sometimes more than one thing. That's kind of, we're just trying to keep a cadence of filling in that backlog at the same time as we move new features forward. And in terms of new features, no, I'm not going to talk about what those are going to be, but I am quite happy to say that Home is just the start, and I think what's coming after Home is probably even more significant than Home.
Okay.
And we are just as we say this, starting to head in to the beta process for some of those features. So over the coming months, you will see those features start to come out for Evernote. And I think the first half of this year will be pretty action-packed.
Oh, can't wait! I will keep an eye on this.
As we open up. I talked a lot earlier about Home being a surface. Yeah. You are going to substantially expand what Evernote's capabilities are to reflect what people use Evernote for today, right? There are things Evernote uses, people use Evernote for today that it doesn't do much to support. We're actually looking at what people do and trying to support it much more powerfully than we do today. And
so you will actually address those.
It's going to be an exciting first half.
Yeah, so you can't wait. And that's good that you said the first half. So that's not a long time. So you already set our next interview for the second half of 2021. So we can talk
you'll want to talk to me before then.
Oh, right. Okay. So even better. Can't wait to see what's coming up next then. And I have faith now that you will deliver, looking at what you delivered so far since the release. I think that's really something you went through well, and you addressed the concerns and all this. So also happy to talk with you in the interview. That's, I think, always great for the people to have a face and a connection to the brand, actually. I think that's very important. So thank you very much, Ian, for that.
No problem. And I think, we know we have a ways to go in some areas, and we know we have work to do, and we are working exceptionally hard, to try to meet the expectations of all of our users. And we know it's frustrating, especially if you've got a feature that you relied on that isn't there yet. And we're trying to get there as quickly as we can. But I really do believe that the first half of this year is going to be really exciting. So I hope our users feel the same way when they get to the other side of it.
Yeah, I think that there's a great closing words for the interview. And I thank you very much for being with me on the show again. And I can't wait to talk to you about the new features in a few months.